5 days to fat loss. So there's two complaints that I hear from women all the time. Number one is weight gain or maybe stubborn weight loss. Like you're trying to lose weight and the things that were working before just are not working anymore. And the other one is energy. And and a lot of times they're related. I hear from women, if I could just lose weight, I would feel more energized. So today I'm going to begin a short little mini series, 5 days of fat loss. I'm going to be giving you a little bit of teaching each day and then a practical take home of something you can start doing today to help you lose fat. All right, so we're going to dive in. Day one, we're talking about protein. So why I want to talk about protein, you're like, okay, protein, if you've never, I think most people, especially if you want to lose weight, you've heard of protein before. Maybe you have some idea that like meat has protein and you need maybe you know of like protein shakes. But like if you've got some idea of protein, so basically the food that we eat is made up of three macronutrients. It's made of carbs, fat, and protein, right? Those are the three main building blocks of food. And those macronutrients affect our body differently. So when it comes to fat loss, I want to back up for a second. When it comes to weight gain, let's talk about that. Number one thing across the board, I think people used to think, we used to be told it's all about the calories. It's like, I'm eating too much calories. That's why I'm gaining weight. If I just ate less, then I would lose weight. But I see women all the time who are eating less and still aren't losing weight. And they're like super working out at the gym, right? We've been sold this idea that it's all about calories, but it's not really. So if we look at really what's going on in the body, what's going on hormonally, when people gain weight, it's that we actually have an increase in our blood sugar that can be from eating too much. It can be eating too much of the wrong thing. We're eating a lot of carbs. We're not eating enough of the other, right? Fat and protein were the other two macronutrients. It can also be, if you've ever heard any of my podcasts before, my episodes before, it can also be from other hormonal shifts in our body, specifically our stress hormone cortisol makes our blood sugar go up, and that's a protective thing. Like everything in our bodies, we have to think back to, we are wired for survival. So when we are under stress, our body goes, oh, I need energy to combat this stress, to rise to the occasion. And so cortisol will put sugar into your bloodstream. And when I say sugar, I know that can be confusing. It doesn't necessarily mean like table sugar, like the kind of sugar that you're going to bake with. We mean sugar from like a chemical structure standpoint. So even like if we eat a potato, right, eventually it gets broken down into molecules of sugar. So, okay. So if we think back, let's take it back to weight gain. So weight gain, what is happening is that hormonally, our blood sugar has increased. We have more blood sugar than our body needs. So we do need sugar to get into our cells for energy, but we only need so much. And when we have more than our body needs, our body ends up storing it as fat. And there's another hormone that's involved there called insulin. So when we have, even in normal amounts, when we have sugar in our bloodstream, insulin is a hormone that is released by our pancreas. So you might have heard of insulin if you know anybody that has diabetes, right? But insulin gets released and it helps it's like the key that unlocks the door that lets blood sugar into your cell and allows your cell to use the sugar for energy. So the problem comes when we have too much sugar. So then we get we have lots of sugar. So our body responds by making a lot of insulin because it's like, okay, I need more. I got to open all the doors. But the thing is, when we have a lot of insulin, insulin is a fat storing hormone. We're going to end up that extra sugar that we have. Our body goes, okay, well, let me hold on to this for later because I might go through a period where I don't have, remember, we're hardwired for survival. Our body primitively goes, I might not have enough sugar later if I'm in famine. And so I'm going to store this extra sugar as fat so that I can use it later for nutrients. But, right, we live in, most of you probably live in the United States that are going to listen to this. A majority of us, thankfully, are not going without meals. We're probably eating more meals than we need. And so, or we could be. I won't take it too far because I'm going to talk about eating enough on another episode. But most of us, right, aren't going to starve. Most of us are going to have food, the food that we need, all the time. So we store this extra sugar as fat. Okay. So when it comes to losing weight, when it comes to fat loss, our strategy really has to be around lowering blood sugar and insulin. And so what we know from research is that protein helps to stabilize our blood sugar. So if we look at the way we digest, remember those three macros were protein, carbs, and fat. Our body digests carbs the fastest, then protein, then fats. And so if we're eating, and I find across the board, even with myself, unless I'm being mindful of it, I don't eat enough protein. And I find that across the board with the women that I work with. So I work with a lot of, I would say, high achieving, busy women. They really value their health. They're usually in their 30s and 40s. They're wanting to get healthier. They're wanting to lose weight. They're wanting to have more energy, things like that. And when we look at what they're eating, they're not eating enough protein. So when we eat enough protein, it helps to stabilize our blood sugar. Like we just talked about, we want to lower our blood sugar. We want to lower our insulin levels. When we eat enough protein, we actually have less cravings. And part of that is because we're not having, what happens is when we eat protein, our blood sugar is less like this. If you're watching this video, if you're watching YouTube, so when we're just eating carbs or, eating carbs a lot by themselves, our blood sugar swings more, makes bigger swings. It goes up faster and higher and goes down, faster. But when we eat protein, it actually slows the digestion of those carbs down. So our blood sugar is more stable. It doesn't go as high. It doesn't go as low. And because of that, we have less cravings. And so again, like I said, most women do not eat enough protein. But protein, you're going to find out, is key to help stabilizing that blood sugar. But also, I want to bring in some other facts here. So we need protein because actually every cell in our body is partly made up of protein. So we have to eat enough protein just to keep our body functioning normally. So protein are in things like our muscles and other tissue, connective tissue, things like that. Our, organs, so much of our organs are made of muscle. So you want your body to function normally, you need enough protein. But our blood cells, so think about, if you have anemia, if you get sick a lot and your white blood cells that are part of your immune system, those are all made of protein. The enzymes in our body. So enzymes are these little chemical messengers that make all these chemical reactions happen in our body. That's how so much of our body functions. Those are made of protein. Okay. Even our hormones are partly made up of protein. So if you are listening to this, you might have heard me talk about hormone balance or hormone imbalance before. Eating enough protein, we need to eat enough protein for our hormones to be balanced. But so not to get too sciencey, but protein eventually gets broken down. Protein is made up of things called amino acids. You might have heard of amino acids if you've had like an amino acid drink, right? So if you go to the gym, if you lift weights, you might have your BCAAs, if you've heard that. That's branched chain amino acids. So we need amino acids, which we get from protein sources, to build protein, which is in all of our body, like we talked about, to build our hormones, and also to build our neurotransmitters. So these are like little chemical messengers that help our brain function, that help our body, you're so much chemical signaling that's happening from your brain to your arm, to your, digestion, to your heart, all these things. And we need enough amino acids for all these functions to happen. Okay. So hopefully I convinced you that we need protein for more than just like weight loss, right? But that's mainly what we're talking about today is fat loss. So the rule of thumb is to eat about 20 to 30 grams of protein at your meals and snacks. So this equates to about 90 to 110, excuse me, I said that weird, grams of protein per day. So if you have never looked at a nutrition label before, you might be like, I have no idea how much that is. This is what I hear a lot of times from women. They tell me like, oh, I eat an egg for breakfast for, to get like some protein in. Well, an egg has, if you eat one large egg, it has 7 grams of protein. So remember I said you want to get 20 to 30 grams in at a meal. So that's like 3 to 4 eggs at your meal. So I want to encourage you, if you never have before, start looking at labels of things. If you eat yogurt, if you eat, if you have protein shakes, you have protein bars, if you're making chicken, if you're making, I don't know, whatever kinds of protein. Of course, if you use vegan sources of protein or plant-based sources of protein, look actually at the label and see how much protein is in a serving. And what I want you to do, that's your action step for today, is start aiming for 20 to 30 grams of protein every time you eat at a meal or even at a snack. Okay. And my number one recommendation I send to all of my clients is to start just with breakfast. If we have a nice chunk of protein at our breakfast, it actually sets the tone for our blood sugar for the rest of the day. And we can just, if we have a protein rich breakfast, we're just going to set ourselves up for success throughout that day. And so I would just start there. All right. So I'm excited to bring you this little series. There's so much, man. I could talk for hours about this stuff. I'm trying to keep it really short, practical, actionable. And what I would love for you to do is, you have questions, you can send me a DM on Instagram. If you're listening to this podcast, on Spotify, you can comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment obviously below the YouTube video, but I'd love to hear your questions. And I just want to let you know, if you've been listening to my podcast for a little while, I work with women on hormone balance, on weight loss, and on getting back their energy. Those are like the top 3 things that my patients want when they come to me. So if you're interested in seeing what works, what that might look like working together, getting help with weight loss, getting help with hormone balance, things like that, I want you to go to LoriAikman.com/join. Okay. All right. I will see you guys tomorrow.